All right, so that's my first review of the year, and really, this is just trying to get back into the swing of things, shake off the holiday food coma. Oh my God, so much food. And frankly, I'm at that age where any disruption to my schedule throws productivity for a loop. So I'm just trying to regain my balance. I'm so old. Anyway, first review of the year, Richard Powers, Overstory. Wow, what a great read. Richard Powers. Great author. Such good writing. Okay, so it's a little bit like Tommy Orange's There, where you have multiple narratives converging at some future point. Here in the first chapter, we're introduced to Nicholas Hole. He's a Norwegian immigrant landing on the shores of the United States in around the mid-1800s. He is picking chestnuts off the ground from the trees that grow naturally in Brooklyn, and he finds some of these chestnuts in his pocket and plants them in the Iowa dirt as he's starting his family farm. We skip ahead for several generations. Nicholas's son embarks on a project to take a picture of the family chestnut tree every month. He makes his son promise to continue that tradition, and the subsequent son continues it as well. Meanwhile, a fungal blight has obliterated 4 billion chestnut trees across the United States. So chapter 1, fungus, family, and photographs. And I guess this is why reviews just don't do as well on this channel. I can imagine you running off to the store to pick up this book right now, but I have to tell you, this first chapter was fantastic, and it continues for the rest of the book. And then we're introduced to second generation Mimi Ma and her mulberry tree. And then there's Adam Appick and the maple trees father plants for him. All told, there are 9 different characters that we are introduced to, many of whom will converge at a California redwood forest in danger of being cut down. And by this point, frankly, I should hate this book. The eco-warriors take on names like Watchman and Maidenhair, and oh my God, I swear I can smell the patchouli and body odor from here. I just want to put the book down, run outside, and play hacky sack. I'm just broken up by the fact that I can't grow a proper man bun. But the thing that kept me reading for 500 pages of essentially tree prose is the writing. Richard Powers is a phenomenal writer. You'd think he's been writing about trees his entire life. It is nothing short of stunning how he's able to wax poetic about trees. He's like Mary Oliver with a botany degree. Actually, do yourself a favor. Get on that Mary Oliver bandwagon. Get some poetry in you. No one writes about nature in a poetic form better than Mary Oliver. She's absolutely fantastic. But back to Richard Powers here. He is going deep on the science, the new science surrounding trees. The fact that they may be aware of their surroundings, can warn each other of danger, share an airborne immune system, an underground, massive vascular network that can span thousands of miles, creating this sort of forest intelligence, and may even have an extensive neurobiology. Powers is going deep on the science here, and turns out that's something of what he does. Powers has written about AI, genetics, virtual reality, photography, classical music, neurology in the past. It's really his thing. For this, he spent 5 years immersed in trees and nature. This was all sparked by a visit to a California redwood forest that so inspired him. He left Palo Alto, quit his teaching gig at Stanford University, and moved up into the mountains. And he just went all in. Now, traditionally, you could take all of that research and form it into a nonfiction narrative, something along the lines of, let's say, Mary Roach. But instead, he tells stories. As far as he's concerned, people are moved by stories. And frankly, he's the guy I want telling them. After reading this, I'm determined to pick up a lot more of his back catalog. But for here, it's all about the trees, for Richard Powers speaks for the trees have no tongue, and he's telling you all at the top of his lung, take care of the trees. He'll yell and he'll shout, or else the fine things on earth will be on their way out. It's not much of a stretch to consider Richard Powers as the Lorax, or that the Overstory is really a long-form version of Shel Silverstein's The Giving Tree. So the little boy is the stand-in for mankind, constantly taking from the trees to build cradles and beds, canoes, paddles, decking and paneling, all without end, never knowing when to stop. But it's not just massive consumerism. It's also climate change, biodiversity collapse, and globalism that's had a profound impact. Earlier, I talked about the 4 billion trees, chestnut trees, that were decimated across the United States. But even in my own backyard, our once tree-lined street has been decimated by the emerald ash borer from China, which has meant more than half of the ash trees on our street have had to have been cut down. These are trees that were planted before I was born, and it is a bit of a tragedy. Now, we still have chestnuts in the area, which Reminds me of a game we used to play when we were kids called Chestnuts. I know in the UK it's known as Conkers, and for some weird reason they suspend the chestnut in the air and try and hit it, whereas ours, we'd lay our chestnut in the ground and someone else would take a smack at it, and then you would trade places, and the loser would be the one whose chestnut fell off the string first. And of course, talking about this makes it feel like I grew up in some sort of Dickens novel back in the 1800s. How quaint. Anyway, if you made it this far into the review, Richard Powers' The Overstory, fantastic read. I highly recommend it. I'm going to go pick up his back catalog and hit that. And I also want to say thanks. The last video I talked a little bit about having spent 4 years on booktube and not sure exactly what I was going to do. And I certainly didn't say that to, I don't know, just try and fish for compliments. So I do appreciate all the kind words that all of you said. I don't plan on going anywhere. I'm just saying now, after my 4th year, all bets are off. Who knows what's going to happen? Anyway, I do appreciate all your kind words, and I do appreciate every one of you. So many of you that have been with me for such a long time. I think that's fantastic, and I couldn't appreciate that more. I love you guys all. So I'm going to keep continuing doing this booktube thing as long as it scratches that creative itch for me, which I see it doing for quite some time. I am a little bit out of practice. The first one of the year is always shaky, but I am optimistic for 2019. I'm looking forward to a lot of reviews and a lot of other different things here on BookTube, as BookTube tries to figure out what exactly it is. And I'm just interested to see where we're pushing out in the boundaries and defining what it looks like in 2019. So anyway, long rambly way of saying thank you to everyone who watches. Thank you to everyone who subscribes. I appreciate you all. And in the meantime, I hope you all have a great week of reading, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.